Good afternoon, guys. All right, I'm gonna try to quickly go over my options trades this morning. Today was a very bright green morning, very solid morning. Didn't have a single red trade. Pretty easy price action today. It started out difficult though, and but it did end up getting better. But first, we'll go over the pre-market analysis. So here was the pre-market analysis, and this is the right day. It is the right day. Why does this look so different? Oh, now we're good. So we're obviously in an uptrend overnight. So that plays a major role in my bias. And as you can see, we do have some relevant pivots. The most relevant nearby pivot is this one on NQ. It is a very relevant pivot. We just barely missed it. So going before market open, when I sent out my pre-market analysis, the only bias that I had was I am bullish for this pivot to break. Okay. And if NQ invalidates a majority of this drop, I will be triggered into calls for this pivot up here. So that's my bias going into market open. And here's a pivot here. Here's another one here. You know, I can keep marking these out. You can do this one, this one. This is a good one on ES. There you go. Those are my relevant pivots nearby. Well, market open happens. And we put in a perfect double bottom on NQ, and as you guys know, perfect double bottoms are rare. Now, this isn't the craziest double bottom in the world, but it is a perfect double bottom, and I am bearish for this to break. That completely changes my bias. And when we bounced, I filled puts on this bounce. I want to say it was on this candle. Let me check my thinkorswim real quick so I can confirm that it was on this candle. Yep, it was on this one. So while the NQ candle was green, I filled SPX puts roughly here. It got a selling wick before I could fill, so I didn't get the best fill in the world. But so I am bearish on NQ to get to here, but it's clear on this candle that SPX is weaker, or ES is weaker than NQ. So my PT is this NQ demand break, this perfect double bottom to break. But I'm trading in on SPX because SPX is a lot weaker. However, because I'm entering the first candle of market open. No, it wasn't the first candle of market open. Hang on. Nope, it was the first candle. 100% the first candle of market open. I got confused. First candle of market open, I filled this, but every single time I enter on the first candle of market open, I have to enter half size. I cannot enter full size. The implied volatility on contracts drop too much after open if it doesn't just explode your way. So it's far too risky. So it's a half size trade, and we'll see what happens. Not a hard stop loss or anything. I'm not really looking to average down on this trade if we bounce. It just kind of depends. I'm expecting this to be a quick scalp because I'm hoping that NQ will just come down here and then go up. I'll sell down here and then I'll take calls. Well, it doesn't. Now, I was very happy that I was in SPX instead because it was fantastic strength and weakness analysis. Was very, very, very close to stopping out here. Why? Well, NQ, I mean, at this point, I'm triggered in nearly for my bias. We have a small supply for me. It's not really a big deal. But up here, I'm triggered in for calls for this high, which is my original pre-market bias. Luckily, ES is weaker on this candle. And we come back down. Normally, I would add contracts here because it's obvious that ES should get low a day. I mean, it's super weak. NQ is kind of rejecting mild supply. If my PT was ES related, it's not. My price target is an NQ price target down here. And so far, NQ does not look like it wants to go down there. Now, if NQ can drop to here, roughly here, so invalidate a majority of the bounce, then I will add puts. But unless that happens, I'm just going to rock with my half-size position. And it was very interesting because we were going opposite directions. ES is dropping, NQ is going up. I thought this was going to be where ES was, and it wasn't. Look at the selling wicks on ES. Well, now we're kind of starting to test demand. NQ's kind of chopping up. I think NQ may pull back. Look at this. NQ's not pulling back at all. It even missed this very minor pivot right here. And now keep in mind, the contracts are chopping a lot. I entered at market open, okay? And you can see these selling wicks. A lot of these selling wicks on ES are actually bullish selling wicks. A lot of buyers are entering down here at the bottom of this trend, right? Or at least the current bottom. And my contracts are chopping a ton. Now, I didn't want to have to sell before it gets a PT, but now not only are we in demand, not only is NQ like incredibly strong and I'm nearly triggered in to my QQQ calls, which I almost got in on this candle, but good thing I waited for it to close. Not only are we in demand, but we're about to sweep a major pivot in demand. I'm thinking we're probably going to bounce if that happens. We sweep it. I'm getting into calls right here. I trim here. I didn't get the trim on the last candle. I didn't fill. I trimmed here, got around 20% gains. And I sold most of it. Now, if we ended up falling back down to my white line area right here, then I'll re-enter. But this is just screaming hazard. I'm starting to lean bullish for an ES bounce. And an ES bounce, even if it's a small cap bounce, because of NQ strength, should send NQ to PT. So this is a very stressful scenario here. And I fill calls on this candle right here. I fill calls on this candle, and I close the last of my puts. That is just as I suspected, a bullish liquidity sweep on ES of a solid pivot out of demand with a volume spike. NQ is incredibly strong in validating this selling wick. I'm triggering into my Q calls. Now, I did sell the last of these puts at a loss. So I only averaged maybe 5 to 10% on that trade. It was a really, really small win. But I'm just really lucky I didn't lose because NQ did not get to that perfect double bottom at all. I did end up trading to that perfect double bottom on futures. That was a nice green trade, but didn't happen this morning. So I filled my calls and I sold them 20 seconds later at this high. I sold them for plus 32% gains. I saw the volume spike. It started forming a selling wick right here. I just market sold pretty much right when I got to this PT. So I got 32% gains on this. And you have to keep in mind, or you have to understand, what I had in mind is NQ still has this perfect double bottom. So I'm not really bullish for it to continue past this pivot here. Like, I'm not very bullish for that to happen because this perfect double bottom down here. Well, it did. And those calls skyrocketed up to like 84% gains if you held. So 84% gains as of the high of this candle. So I was proved wrong, and if you held, you did a lot better than I did. But I'm so happy that I'm green. Now look at the strength on the NASDAQ. This is incredible momentum, incredibly strong. And what pattern do you see forming on ES? A bullish inverse head and shoulders. Now we have another major pivot here on NQ. I'm just going to highlight them. We have this big one, this very big one up here. And then we have some other decent ones. None of those marked correctly. That's awesome. Why is this not marking correctly? There we go. So I'm not, with this momentum, I'm not leaning bearish for NQ to reject supply. I'm expecting it to at least get the first pivot in supply. Actually, the first two pivots. So I want an excuse to get in. The reason why I got out of my calls is because I'm leaning bearish for that perfect double bottom, but now it's so far away, it's not relevant anymore. What's relevant is this current trend and momentum. NQ is so incredibly strong, and ES has an inverse head and shoulders, which means I am super bullish if we start pulling back here. And that's exactly what happened. As a result, I did fill QQQ calls half size here. And I planned on adding if we pull back. But I don't know if we're really going to pull back much because I'm so freaking bullish. And even if we do pull back, I'm expecting an inverse head and shoulders. So I'm bullish now, but I'm half size because I like to bet on the inverse head and shoulders. So I'm very bullish on this pullback. It starts going up. It looks okay. Looks really good. We miss PT by one singular tick, or the first pivot by one tick. Now, I wanted to average down at the bottom of this candle. I didn't, though, because the bottom of that candle, I was thinking ES may go for demand. It didn't. It got a huge buying wick. I filled my average down at the end of this candle going into the next candle. The calls dropped all the way to 55 cents. I filled my average down at 63 cents. It doesn't really look like an average down, and it wouldn't be if you were trading futures, but my options decayed a bit. I initially filled these contracts at 67 cents. So my average was now 65. Full size trade. Here we go. I'm betting on the inverse head and shoulders. That's what's happening. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Full size trade. Shoots right up. It's freaking beautiful. Boom, there's PT. Glorious. I sold just about all of it except a small runner position. I'm personally not very bullish for this inverse head and shoulders to break to the upside. Just like I wasn't bearish for NQ to reject the supply, I'm not really bullish for this inverse head and shoulders to break to the upside, and here's why. ES is incredibly weak. Look how much NQ has gone up. Look how much ES has gone up. Very big difference. If ES is going to break to the upside from this inverse head and shoulders, NQ's going to have to shoot up to here. Which do I think is more likely? NQ shoots up to here, through this supply, through all these pivots, or ES pulls back one more time to maybe sweep demand, put in a bear pennant and break to the downside, or then come up. So I'm not bearish. I'm not very bullish for ES to break the inverse head and shoulders to the upside here. So I only have a runner position left just in case it does. And I sell it on this candle. This is a super bearish liquidity sweep. And I would enter puts here. But ES left a perfect double top right here. I know more candles top there, but I just call it a double top because it's two minor pivots. So now I'm bullish for this top to break. And it started looking to me like NQ finally started flipping weaker than ES, and ES flipped a bit stronger. So I'm actually bullish. And I believe it was early into this candle that I filled calls. Which one was it? Yeah. I filled calls. No, sorry. It was at the end of this candle going into the next candle, I filled calls on SPX. Again, starting to kind of get it back into aggressive trading. The last few days of last week was good. The price action today is great despite this perfect double bottom being here, but it's fine. We're not chopping. ES is chopping, but NQ's not. So I take a scalp, a fairly small scalp here. Fairly light size. I'm roughly half size on it because it's got a bad risk to reward because I'd like to add a demand. And here it is testing PT. As you can see, I was correct. ES did end up flipping stronger. I will sell pretty much right when this hits PT. Boom, I sold right away. I actually did pretty okay on those puts. I mean, sorry, on those calls. I got 24% gains on those calls. It was actually a pretty good trade. It looks small, but it paid for what I guess SPX is more volatile. Now, if you take your eyes to NQ, NQ still kind of weaker up here. Just put in like a huge shooting star, swept higher highs, and put in a volume spike. When we were going up, I said in voice chat, I'm actually bearish for at least this level right here to hit on NQ because I'm surprised that this didn't sweep before it went up. So I said when ES gets to PT, I would like to enter puts if NQ bearishly sweeps high of day. Well, that happened, but it happened way, way, way faster than I thought it would. And I wasn't really able to alert. I said I got into QQQ calls, but you're not going to follow that. However, you could have taken the trade yourself because I said before my ESPT hit, I said, looks like NQ is starting to become strong again. If we bearishly sweep high of day, it'll be a solid put trade. Otherwise, let's see what happens. So I told you guys what I was thinking before it even happens, and that's typically what I always do in my channel for good reason. And it happened. So I filled puts here. Unfortunately, it was like the world's biggest selling week, so I didn't really get much. Like I didn't get a good average at all, and I sold it pretty much immediately. I believe it was, how did I sell it? I only got 10% on this trade. It went a little bit further. I only got 10% gains. That's pretty much where I sold. I got a bad fill on the exit. I think the puts maybe did 20%, but that's where I filled. And that was pretty much my day. That's pretty much it. Now I sent a TA alert that I never updated. And it was right here. This was a gorgeous bearish liquidity sweep on NQ. Okay, gorgeous. And by the way, my PT, my 10% gain ended up being a really good one. Like I sold perfectly. I stopped trading options because at this point I got a plus 20% trade. It was, I averaged probably 5% on that first one. It shouldn't have been green. First trade, tiny gains. Second trade, 32%. Got to 90% right after I sold. Plus 29%, plus 24%, plus 10%. So that's five green trades in a row. It's a pretty solid morning, especially for a little bit more aggressive trading. Now we put in this bearish liquidity sweep, and right here I sent the TLer. I said, bear sweep on NQ and ES weak. If NQ doesn't put in a huge buying wick within the next few candles, ES is going to retest demand and likely break it. It did do that, and I sent that way before. I sent that exact message regarding ES going to demand, like right here, which is kind of obvious. It wasn't that far away, but it did end up breaking demand. It tried not to for a little bit, but it did end up happening beautifully, and NQ did end up breaking that perfect double bottom. But that was my morning. That was my options. Now, if any of you guys made it this far in the recording or the lesson, the supply and demand remastered masterclass was yesterday. If you guys are interested in obtaining the recording for that class, it is very different than the previous supply and demand classes. It's one of my best classes ever. Not as good as the last one I did, the Mastering the Market Open class, but it is absolutely fantastic. If you guys are interested in that recording, DM me. And my Discord is Bryce Trades, so DM me. And if your DMs are turned off, it'll say you can't DM me unless I'm your friend. Go to your settings and turn your DMs on for everyone, and that'll be fixed. But all right, does anyone have any questions regarding the analysis behind this morning's executions? No, everyone's good. All right, sweet. Well, it was a great morning. Futures was okay. I made a mistake, and it ended up making me very small red. Shouldn't have happened, but options was good. We started the week very strong, and I'm happy about that. So, well, I will post this recording to YouTube, and I will get that masterclass recording out as soon as possible. I'm just working on the site right now to make that happen. And I will be reviewing my futures trades 30 minutes after market close. So I will see all of you then. If you need anything, reach out. And hopefully you guys had a great day. A great day doesn't mean P&L. A great day is where you make progress as a trader. And most of the progress that needs to be made for the average trader is in the psychological department. So as long as you keep doing that, you're on the right track. Right. I'll see you guys.